Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Today, I guarantee you're going to learn something new. It is Tuesday, the 14th of November 2023, and CPM, or Cooper Metals Limited, has released a copper announcement. This stock has 58 million shares on issue, which is super low. It's trading at 14 cents the previous day, and it's sitting at a market cap of roughly 7 to 8 million in market cap. So I'm showing you the daily chart with everything except today's candle, because I'm going to ask you to estimate or have a guess at what's going to happen with the price action. We're going to quickly go over the news announcements, and I want you to guess what's going to happen, assuming you haven't traded it today. Headline: 50 meters at 1.32% copper intercepted at Brumby Ridge. We scroll down, we can see there's the intercept from 80 meters. So shallow, medium grade, very nice intercept of 50 meters. 2 meters at 6.1%, that's fine. That's not really smearing the grade too much at all. So we're not concerned about smearing. We've got a follow-up from 72 meters at 1.5% copper from 113 meters deep, and to end of hole mineralization, which is nice. And that's estimated from a portable XRF or PXRF, which is basically a tool that really day traders don't factor in ever at all. It's usually wildly inaccurate, and it doesn't beat actual assay results that are done in a lab. So what we have is just one really nice hole, and there's been more significant mineralization that's been intersected at Raven, including 15 meters at 1% copper, which, yeah, okay, it's like, all right, you're starting to hit low grade copper here. And we scroll down, we can also see 28 meters at 0.63. And what we want to see is this infill drilling? So we scroll down, there's some nice photos. But ultimately, what you end up having is no infill drilling. These are fresh drill results from a fresh piece of land. We can see the old results here from the XRF reading, and we have these two drills, and we can see there aren't any other drills that were done before. So we don't have infill drilling. What would be infill is if this drill hit here, 23 Merc 024. I just zoom in. If we had this drill hit here, and this drill hit here, and we ended up today with this one here today, that'd be like an infill. That's in between two drill holes. So you're kind of getting more of the same is effectively what happens with infill drilling. In this case, these are fresh drills, so it's quite nice. Scroll down, we can have a look at the map or the graph they put for this drill campaign, and we can see mineralization, nice mineralization from 80 meters deep. And that's pretty much it. So it's not a down dip, it's not vertical, it's at an angle, which is quite nice. You always be suspicious of vertical dips. And yeah, it's nice. Look, it's nice. The market interpreted it as nice. Now the question is, how do you interpret it? What are your thoughts about this stock and where it goes? Now, if we have a look at the mining grades, and this is from my very, very first video that I've ever uploaded. It might have been the second, actually. But I put this up, and we can see here on copper, less than 1% is low grade. Medium is actually more like 1 to 2% these days, and then high grade is about 2%. So this chart and this graph evolves as the price of all the materials and metals change, right? So this is maybe 3 years old, this graph. It hasn't been updated, at least, well, I've just taken it real quickly. I've updated it myself, but I already know what roughly mid, low, and high grade is, so I don't need to actually physically update it very often. But it's always good for things that I don't catch up on, like graphite, for example. So what we have here is we've got effectively medium grade copper. So based on all this information, what do you think would happen? Based on the shares on issue, just alone on the shares, 50 million shares on issue, what happens? Well, 50 million shares on issue means the book's going to be relatively thin, generally speaking. It's easier to push a stock to the upside, generally speaking. The higher shares on issue means it's more difficult for a stock to rally. So if you've got something like 2 billion shares on issue, it probably gaps up and sells off for about 15-20 minutes, maybe even an hour, and then rallies if it's good news, if it's good enough. So what happens? Well, I'll show you the 1 minute chart. It opens up at 30. So we're looking at 110% gain straight off the match. And then we have a little bit of a break to the upside. It's not quite a break. So now we've got a range after already the third candle. Then we've got a break a range. It looks like it's going to fail. Comes back straight away into range with volumes. You can see the volumes here. So you got a volume at the bottom. It's whether that's a buy volume, you'd have to watch that in real time. I believe that would have been buy volume, so hitting the offer, lifting the offer. Rallies, breaks above VWAP, so if I bring up VWAP, breaks above this 30.5 VWAP, starts to break range to the upside. So we have, let's just do a horizontal here, that's our range and that's our range. Typical range break for a spec stock or any trade. It starts to sort of tickle the upside. Chills out for a bit, completely smokes through VWAP on relatively low volume. So you can see this candle where it went from 32 to 34 ticks in just a little bit of volume. It's not a high volume candle, that. And then it just collapses, and that's pretty much it. Breaks range for a second time. That's all she wrote. What was surprising is that this did come back to VWAP a couple of times. So you can see here at 29, pulls back, makes a higher low, and it's just like, hold on a second. This is what a high share and issue stock does. If I zoom out a bit, a high share and issue stock fails on the open, around the open, breaks range, which is perfectly fine for a high share and issue stock, starts to make higher lows and is not getting rejected by VWAP. Except it kind of is. And then it sort of comes back down, and there are still hopes and dreams that this could swing to the upside. And it does. It breaks and retests this sort of little pivot here, if you want to call it a pivot, and then it just eventually flops. So that's actually a really surprising price action here, is the fact that it held up for so long and actually looked really promising for a brief period of time there. And then ended up closing, hitting a low of 21 and closing at 22.5. Now my call at its highs when it was sitting around 30 cents at 10:17 a.m. was I can't see this stock closing higher than 20 cents today. And that was at 10:27. And I called this out in Discord pre-market as well. So as it was rallying, called it as a 20-cent stock by the end of the day, which I think a lot of people might have been surprised by, especially given a 100% gap. Usually these large gap ups lead to larger price action swings to the upside, especially on low shares on issue stocks. So why would it be a sell-off if everything in this announcement was actually really positive? Well, there's two aspects I want to talk about. First is peer comparisons, right? The market, the last 3 years approximately, no copper stock really has launched on medium grade copper. Now, there is an exception where there's a couple of stocks I know, I don't remember the tickers, but I do remember it happening because it's just so strange, is that they had multiple intercepts. I'd like to say about 5 or 6. And each of the hits were 60 to 120 meters long. So the thickness was very thick. They were relatively shallow, might have been around 100 meters or from 100 meters. And another one was about from 2 to 250 meters deep. But they were mid-grade. And they might have had nice multiple intercepts of long intercepts of medium grade. And they performed okay. I'm talking like maybe gap, they might have had 12 mil market cap, gapped up to like 14 and pushed to 16, maybe 18, and then failed. But really, it's about what's hot on the market. Every single element of this drill result for a $7 million or $8 million company is fucking fantastic. End of hole mineralization, 50 meters, even though it's mid-grade. You know, if this was lithium, if you had like a mid-grade lithium hit like this shit would launch to 20, maybe 24, 25 mil market cap from 8 mil. It'd like 3 bag. Obviously depending on a bunch of other factors, but just generally speaking, you know, medium grade, big intercepts or thick intercepts of lithium would absolutely launch. But this, because it's copper, the ASX, for whatever reason, doesn't care. It doesn't give a shit. For some reason, if something is below 2% copper, doesn't matter how thick it is, unless it really has multiple hits and really thick hits as well, it's not going to perform. So a single 50 meter hit at 1.32% isn't going to perform. Now, you might be wondering, well, Demo, it gapped up 100%. Of course it's performing. Yeah, okay. From a day trade perspective, for someone who doesn't hold it and wants to day trade, it's not performing. It's a useless stock for a day trader. And a large part of the gap here was because it's low shares on issue. So if I clean up the chart here, so a large part of this gap up is because it had 50 million shares on issue, which is super low. It opened up at 30. There was maybe a few shares at 31 and some popped in at 32.5. But effectively at one point in time, I think there might have been no sellers during the day. Like on the order book, none at all. So that sort of causes the FOMO on the rally. You know, you got 100% rally. It's going to interest other day traders to come in. So there's a little pop to the upside. You know, people like myself are trying to get on the momentum. Except it's medium grade copper and eventually it's going to fail. I mean, this is the best outcome for medium copper you can get, is a big gap up, low shares on issue, so it spikes a little bit to the upside and then just collapses and dies. This is perhaps one of the best mid-grade copper hits I've seen in a while, and this is how it performs. It does next to sweet fuck all in terms of intraday. You're just not going to make money, at least nothing of relevance. It's going to be relatively low. You might be able to get 3 or 4 grand, maybe 5 grand, but it's not going to be very comfortable. And you're going to be fighting for a tick or two, and then the order book's going to be shitty because it's thin and then churns. It's just gross. So the point I'm trying to make is that even though you might have mining grades like this, you might have like a little cheat sheet you might find helpful. That's perhaps about 20% of the story. The other 80% is actually paying attention to what the market does. And what the market does for mid-grade copper is absolutely punish it. And this is effectively as punishing as it gets for a low share on issue stock that's gapped up 100%, closing at 22.5. I mean, I was half a tick away. I was 2.5 ticks away. But point is that this was not going to go unpunished. It just wasn't, based on peer comparisons. So even though everything reads well, one needs to understand, based on peer comparisons, how it's going to perform. And some of you newer traders who are coming on are like, well, Demon, how do I know what's going to rally and what's not? How do I know if I get 8 grams a ton of gold on this mining grade chart, 8 grams a ton, which is more like upper medium grade at this point in time. It's not high grade. 10 grams a ton plus is high grade. So just a little bit of an update there. But so at 8 grams a ton, if I hit maybe 15 meters and there's maybe 3 intercepts, where's that going to go? What's the market cap target there? And the answer is, well, you're not going to know the first time you trade something. So pay attention to all the cobalt announcements that come out, all the copper ones, all the gold ones, and you're getting one almost every day. Obviously not for cobalt, but you're getting a copper announcement very often. I think there were 2 today. And then you've got gold that comes out sort of regularly, but you've got lots and lots of lithium announcements. You've got lithium brine and you've got hard rock. You've got so much data. It's probably going to take you about 5 minutes at the end of every day to go, hey, what microcap has rallied today? You go, okay, let's say I've got ticker XYZ and ABC. okay, these stocks have rallied 30%. Obviously, in the future, I want to trade a stock that's rallied 30%. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the market cap of that stock before it launched. I'm going to look at the shares on issue. Then I'm going to look at the price action. I'm going to see what happened that day. And then all of a sudden, you're building a picture of, hey, this lithium announcement with 1.5% lithium for a hard rock is moving this much because it's hit this much of an intercept. Like, let's say it's hit 100 meters at 1.5%. Yeah, it's going to fucking launch. And then you just take note of the peak market cap. And that's it. You're going to start building a little mini database of peer comparisons. It's what I got on Discord. On Discord, I got a channel dedicated to stocks that have moved greater than 20%. And then I've got their breakdown of shares on issue, market cap, share price, the actual announcement itself, and what sort of grades they've hit. And that way, if for some reason I forget, because let's say maybe Cobalt doesn't trade very often, I might have a Cobalt announcement that traded in the last 6 months, and then I can refer to that and use that as my peer comparison. Now, it's not going to be perfect, but generally speaking, I can predict market cap targets pretty fucking accurately in the microcap space. So that's my edge, is I understand what grades get what market cap, and then I can predict the price action from there very comfortably. So I can have very high convictions on microcap trades based on the news announcements that they come out, particularly when it's related to mining. So keep that in mind, is that sure, you might get some mid-grade stuff, but what do the peers say? What do the other mid-grade copper announcements tell you? And the answer is a resounding sweet fuck all. Alright guys, catch you in the next one. Peace.